What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do just that is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. I can't see you until we go live. I did not know that we color coordinated. It's Black Tuesday on the Fantasy Forecast. No, doing great. Great to see you. Really excited to talk some busts today.
I was going to say, it makes sense that we color coordinated to the black shirts because this is a slightly dreary topic, you know? If we're going to do boom or bust week, we do unfortunately have to do a show about, fantasy busts. Plus, producer Colin's like, we got to do a bust show. People will click on it. All right. So there is also that. We do have to sell out a little bit for the clicks and views, baby. But on this show, I wanted to do something different than your typical bust show. And I'm going to explain why here. And Nate knows this because I sent him way too long of a text last night and a link to a spreadsheet on what we're going to be looking at today, which is just, I feel bad about. Anytime I have to, I feel bad making people do a podcast with me. Number one, I feel bad sending long text messages. Number two, and certainly when I'm like, take a look at this color-coded spreadsheet. That's like check on things I don't like to do, but hopefully Nate tolerated it and was a good sport about it.
I know. I loved it as an over-preparer, someone that puts way too many notes into simple topics like 3 teams that might make the playoffs or something like that. I appreciated it, but I also, my first thought was, we're just talking AFC East on Wednesday, so don't worry about it, man. On Football 301, no, but I appreciated the notes for it because I'm excited. I wanted to see what lens, because I knew you said you were going to explain this in a perfect way, but I liked that you gave me a little time to marinate on it because I actually thought this could be a really fun topic.
Okay, so here's how this is going to be different than all the other fantasy football bust shows that are going up in the middle of August right now. We're not just going to sit here and list off players that we think are going to be disappointing, and because I wanted it to be more focused at the team level, right? Because I say this all the time. The simplest way to play fantasy football is just draft good players from good teams. And on the inverse of that, there's a lot of teams that you just don't want to draft guys from, okay? Because the offensive ecosystem is going to be so bad, so poisoned that if you just avoid that entirely, you probably are making some good decisions there. Think about, hey, guess what? I always say this. If you stacked like the 2013 Broncos, you probably won your fantasy league. If you overinvested into the 2024 Chicago Bears, you probably lost your fantasy football league. So sometimes it's good just to find those. It's much more informative and I think actionable to find the offenses that we want to just don't draft into, as opposed to here's some players that might disappoint. They might finish 5 spots below their ADP or whatever. So I wanted to focus on this from the team level, but Nate, I wanted to take this one level deeper because I also did not think it would be instructive for us to sit here and say, oh, Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback of the Colts. You want to not draft Colts players because they got a bad quarterback situation. Or guess what? Don't draft the damn Browns. We know that. We know which offenses are probably going to be disappointing.
Right.
So what I wanted to do here was find 6 teams that the wisdom of the crowd, which is my little fake metric that I came up with here, is projecting much lower than where we are currently drafting their fantasy football players. So what I did was I took, again, wisdom of the crowd projections. I took 3 different sources and put them into a rankings. DVOA from FTN, formerly Football Outsiders, now FTN, Aaron Schatz and the boys putting that together. They project all offenses 1 to 32. Vegas obviously is projecting point totals for all of these teams on a per game basis. So put that 1 to 32. And then Mike Clay, who I think does fantastic work projections. Again, his offensive points scored projection into 1 to 32 came with a wisdom of the crowd ranking there. And then weighed that against Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, where the top 3 skill position players, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, are going, and ranked those. So in that way, the higher number is better, right? So just for example, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase is going number 1 in consensus ADP. Chase Brown is 24. T. Higgins is 30. That is like a 55 total. It's the lowest number of ADP, like overall ADP. So they're going the highest relative to all other players. So certain players like right there, like for example, The player with the lowest third flex player being drafted is the Saints, Rashid Shaheed, 151st overall. Again, we don't need to sit here and talk about, well, the Saints are not going to be a good offense. We all generally know that. So we're trying to hunt some big fishes today. So the 6-ish teams I decided to talk about here, because again, there's the biggest gap between their ADP ranking and their wisdom of the crowd team offensive projections, are the Las Vegas Raiders at a whopping 8-point difference, the Arizona Cardinals, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, and I want to kind of put the Falcons in here alongside the Vikings because it's a rather similar discussion we're going to have. So again, Nate, this is my methodology and to try to find the offense that we are maybe overdrafting in fantasy right now. Before we go forward, does that make any sense?
It does. It does. I like it. I like the wisdom of the crowd, kind of weighing all of those as well. You got a nice little kind of eyeball test along with some analytics test, along all that good stuff. And it was along with the gambling angle. So I did appreciate that. And also, yes, this did make sense after I kind of was like, oh, okay, you're adding them up. Okay. And then we got the subtraction for there. So this makes total sense in our methodology and exactly what we're going to do. Subject wise made sense as well, which is, I think it's curious too. Some of these teams that you mentioned, you even just said the Falcons there and the Vikings. I think those are interesting discussions because of those flex candidates and because of like what the mouths to feed in those offenses. So this is going to be, the discrepancy between those teams is going to be pretty fun.
Right. And some of these we might disagree with. We might actually think, hey, the offense is going to be maybe a little bit better than the wisdom of the crowd thinks. And I do think wisdom of the crowd is good, right? Because you don't want to just pull from one source. That's why I wanted to do all three. But let's waste
and there's
no
other
more time
factors,
explaining.
you know, like we got, you know, the Raiders are going to be an interesting discussion, I think, right off the bat, but like, not to get ahead of ourselves, but also it's just that's what there's some of these underlying narrative things that maybe create kind of like outsized projections, good or bad. You know, I think a good example is the Marvin Harrison Jr. train last year with the Cardinals and how high he was getting drafted. But those kind of things can lead to some differences. That's why I think this could be interesting.
Well, let's jump right into the Raiders because honestly, they're the team that really made me want to do the exercise this way. Instead of saying like, maybe don't draft too many Giants players or Browns play, whatever. Again, we know which teams are most likely to be bad, but
Matthew Stafford's going to be hurt, so not we'll be wary of the Rams.
Correct. Easy stuff. We're not trying to shoot for layups. We're trying to actually give you some actionable advice on this one. So again, the Raiders, to explain the difference in the methodology here, they are 7th in ADP rank because Ashton Genty goes 10th overall in Fantasy Pros consensus ADP. Brock Bowers 18th. They have 2 players going inside the top 20. Jacoby Myers, I mean, he's 89th pick, but that's kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of the third skill position player drafted from a team. Meanwhile, wisdom of the crowd total ranking is 25th. The best of the 3 projectors here, like most optimistic, is DVOA at 20th. So that is an 18 spot difference between where they are in the wisdom of the crowd projections of their offense and the ADP rank of their players. So Nate, this was the team that stood out the most to me, that nobody's really projecting them to be this great offense. And yet fantasy drafters are taking 2 players near the very top of their positions, running back Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers at tight end. So I know that, you know, Chip Kelly is a mutual fascination of ours as an offensive coordinator. I know that Geno Smith is like the film watching hipster's favorite quarterback. So I understand why there is some optimism for this team, maybe from a floor perspective, but is there reason to be concerned that this Raiders offense maybe is more of like an interesting fascination as opposed to a productive unit in 2025?
I think, I mean, of course I think there's a lot of optimistic projection here, but I think there is some validity to be optimistic about it. You mentioned Chip Kelly, of course, but also, you know, Pete Carroll. Both of their offensive philosophies is run first, much to some people's chagrin, the let Russ cook era. You know, we see what happened when we deviated from that, but Chip Kelly's always been run heavy, whether it's been in the pros or in college. And I think that they drafted this guy in the top 10, a player in Ashton Genty that had high projections as just a prospect as well. Like that, I think just signals what they're going to lean into. I think also just this offense that for me, looking at this offense, it's funky. Chip Kelly's passing game is in some ways basic and in some ways kind of, in some ways it's just like convolutes defenses by being basic. But the mouths that get fed are generally over the middle of the ball because they like to run with concepts like mesh and concepts that just work over the middle. They use the running back and use the tight end. So I think that the tight end and running back projections, because of first off, they have the talent to get this usage, but also a coordinator that's going to call this usage, that those match up to me. I think overall why the projections are low overall is if you looked at how bad this team was last year, that was like, oh man, how much better can they get? So I think that's just more just them. The projections are more just the midline. But I think narratively and also just, knowing what Chip Kelly has done, what this team is doing overall, I will say just, again, this is more narrative scouting or more just kind of, reading between the lines, watching on film. There's some great vibes with the Raiders right now. Watching their preseason games, they just got a nice way about them right now. So I think that maybe that's why there's some outweighed stuff here because those two guys, Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers, are going to get some usage. And I think that's why they just kind of outkick their ADP or the differential, the ADP and the projections, I should say. Yeah. But the third mouth is anyone's guess who's that's going to be. I think it's going to be a split between a whole bunch of guys because that's been a Chip Kelly kind of staple as well. It is just that the ball spreads, the ball finds just who's open as opposed to like we're diagramming this guy open. So that I think is just fair to kind of maybe just be lower on. It's like Jack Bash, Deontay Thornton, Jacoby Myers. Like you just don't know who that mouth is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Myers is a nice player. I think he's a really just rock solid wide receiver that nobody talks about. But like truly, when we talk about know what he talks about, like who's really out here hyping up Jacoby Myers? But I think Myers is a good player. He's got multiple seasons of over 70% success rate versus man coverage. So he's a guy that can play inside and out. I do think he's a nice player. Yeah, he's just a good player. But it is the rest of the depth chart that gets me a little bit like I'm kind of raising my eyebrow at,
Yeah.
They're it's like the Dante Thornton thing's a great example. I think Dante Thornton, when they drafted him, I was like, oh yeah, like this team does need like a size, speed, big perimeter X receiver when you look at the rest of the room. And then you get into minicamp, you're like, oh yeah, 4th round pick is starting for us at X receiver. Yeah. But then sometimes you get into the regular games, you're like, oh my God, we're starting a 4th round pick. Like just no questions asked, just walked right into a starting job. That makes you a little nervous. And then again, like the offensive line, right. And from like a scheme perspective, we probably do want him just doing sacrificial X receiver stuff. Yeah. And like, that's the most important part of what he's going to bring to the table. And eventually Gino's just going to uncork a couple heaters to him. But like, if he can just be MVS with better hands, that's a win for the Raiders, and it doesn't really draw too many targets away from the main guys in the offense. Because that's one thing I'll say before just going further, like on a full team level, if you are going to get multiple players and especially one player to hit from a bad offense, you need real concentration from a target perspective. Because on the inverse of this list, there are teams like the Bills, teams like the Commanders, the Packers, who are double-digit spots between where we all project their offenses to be, the wisdom of the crowd projections of the offense, but the ADP rankings are so low because we don't know where the football is going to go. So there is some of that influencing this as well. But the other question I wanted to ask you about is like the offensive line. Like, where do you think this group can rank league-wide? Because that to me is sort of the crux of whether this all works or not. Like, is this a line that they're like shifting JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson to guard. Yeah. They're installing a new center. Like, what do we think of this front five? Is this an offensive line that can keep a good unit afloat?
I was not super high on them going into the summer, but the preseason early returns are good. But I would say I'm not saying a good offensive line. I'm saying that's maybe better than what I was anticipating. I think it's more like a league average one. But it looks sound, which is really nice. Like, they didn't have a lot of mental mistakes, even though they've been kind of workshopping everybody around. And long-term, I do like some of the projects they took, but I think just this year, like Colton Miller looked healthy, their left tackle. JPJ looked solid at right guard. He's kind of just an ogre, he's kind of just a mauler out there at right guard, but he kind of did some nice stuff at right guard the preseason so far. And I thought their center, Jordan Meredith, had some nice stuff going on. So like, I would say, and the scheme's going to help them too, because Chip Kelly's scheme, just by the tempo they use, the concepts they use, it should have a high floor. And I also just think that they're much better coached than they were last year when a lot of guys were going the wrong direction. And just overall just had no juice in this offense whatsoever outside of a rookie tight end. So I do think this offensive line, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would be like, I think this one's pretty rough. But now I think they can get to about a league average level where they're not kneecapping the entire operation. And again, this offense kind of, because it has so many training wheels, it can kind of help this offensive line as well. I mean, Ted, who follows from The Athletic, Ted Nguyen, like he also focuses on the Raiders as well. Yeah, so you can kind of see keeping Geno upright. We've seen what Geno Smith has done with no protection or shoddy protection. So having just even decent is going to be an upgrade of that. And so I will say, and you brought up Jacoby Myers. I really like Jacoby Myers, the real football player as well. It's just one of these. He's one of this offense. It's not very creative for its outside receivers. It really relies on maybe a lot of verticality. We even saw it a little bit in the preseason where how Geno Smith threw that one to Dante Thornton. There's a lot of action over the middle while the outside's a little basic, goes, out routes, and that's fine. But I think that's more chunky. It's more like those are going to be kind of more boom busty, more high low. As opposed to the consistent usage will be these other guys, Genty, Bowers, yada, yada. That's just a theory of mine. And it's just what I remember from the Eagles offenses 10 years ago. And also just overall what he's done. At Ohio State was a little different because he merged his run game with kind of what Ohio State was doing passing game wise before. So it's kind of like a merger offense. But what he's done at UCLA as well. So that's just, again, working theory. Just when I look at the Raiders and just maybe fantasy usage, even if real football usage, it makes sense. Kind of, I'm throwing this all against the wall. Kind of like you explaining the methodology here. This is me trying to figure out the Raiders' usage and Chip Kelly with them.
To me, Nate, like listening to you talk, it sounds like you don't really buy them as the 25th best offense in the league. It sounds like you might shoot them a little bit higher than that.
Yes, but not like top 10, but more right around league average. And and I think they can get after. They're going to be matchup specific. Like there's going to be certain teams that'll overwhelm them, I think, where they just don't have the firepower, not having outside receivers. Teams will figure out, you're just attacking over the middle over and over. All right. And you're relying on go balls like that. There's going to be teams that can just game plan that well. But I think they're going to get after some other teams. I've preseason has made me more optimistic about this team and just kind of putting things together and piecing this team together. I've been more optimistic about the Raiders. Spoilers, because we're talking about them next week on Football 301.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do think that this is a team that might be like a bad team beater, like they're going to smoke bad teams because I do think Pete Carroll and Geno Smith really raise the floor of this unit. Like, to me, I do think they're like a couple of these sources have them at like 27, 28. I would be surprised if they're I think Geno Smith has to fall off a cliff and like this is like Chip Kelly has to be a total
3 O-line injuries.
Correct. Yeah. To me, I think the floor is higher than that. Like, again, probably somewhere between 18 and 22. But still, I do think if we're in the 18 to 22 range, we're still in a little bit of a dangerous territory with Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers being top 20 consensus picks. So before we get to break, Nate, I will ask you the hard question. Let's say this offense doesn't work. Let's say it is around the 25th unit in the NFL. Which guy would you be more worried about in this scenario, Ashton Genty or Brock Bowers? And I will tell you my answer to this. To me, I actually think it's Ashton Genty a little bit from a ceiling perspective, Nate, because I flip this to the other side of the ball for the Raiders, where that secondary is gonna get deep fried. So, I don't know how many like look, and Ashton Genty's going to be on the field for a ton of snaps. He's going to catch passes. He's going to be okay. But like, this is why I might view him as more of like an early second round pick instead of like a top 10 consensus pick this year. Like, we're splitting hairs. I don't think he's going to be terrible. But again, like if I'm picking one to disappoint, like marginally disappoint, it would be Genty over Bowers. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. And also you just mentioned the pass game script wise. I would say I would I don't want to say optimistic, but I think the Raiders defense can be fine. But again, you just mentioned bad team beaters. There's going to be teams that overwhelm this team, and then they're pass. And Genty might get some dirty dump offs and 2-minute drills and all that kind of stuff. Where I think no matter what, Bowers is going to get his every single week. Like their tight ends, Michael Mayer might eat into a little bit, but I just think Bowers is the feature player of this passing game. And he has a quarterback that is willing and able to throw it. And he has an offensive coordinator that calls the perfect plays for Bowers. Bowers is a explosive slot player. He is great when he can catch and run. I mean, he can do anything. We just saw him dunk on a guy on the outside. He might be the outside guy. Who knows? But you see him, he can catch a crossing route and go. And that's what Chip Kelly loves to call for his players. So like that one is just the easiest one. Genty also, I really like the player just overall. Physical runner. Okay, if we're going to feed him, Chip Kelly prefers to kind of go with a 60-40, 70-30 kind of split. Whether it was UCLA, the Eagles, this is the guy that signed 2 running backs in one offseason to big deals. Like he likes to have 2 guys. So like there's also, okay, let's save our prize top 10 pick and, don't want him to get too much damage. They don't have really any guy Mostert's Mostert, but it's just, there's maybe not that bull that can kind of take a lot of the eating. Yeah. God, that's a great line, Nate. But a guy that can take a lot of the other touches. So with Genty too, it's just that, okay, there's some wear and tear. He's a physical runner. So is there going to be some games where it's like, hey, let's save him some touches and all that? This is me. Again, this is all theory and just talking it out. But I agree with you that I think he gets dinged more than Bowers, who I think it will be featured no matter what the game script is.
All right, that's our first offense that could be in a little bit of trouble based on projections versus ADP. We're going to continue to roll through these six-ish teams that might be in danger. Next one is going to go right towards Nate's heart. So we will get into that team, the Arizona Cardinals, right after this quick break. All right, we are back. Big challenge here in this next segment as we continue to roll through offenses that could be in trouble based on their projections versus ADP. I'm going to try to get Nate Tice to say bad things about the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I will say, Nate, when I put together this data set, if you want to call it that, I was a little bit surprised to see that there was a 10-spot gap between the ADP rank of the Cardinals players versus they were 15th in terms of offensive projections, the wisdom of the crowd projections, because they were 17th, 12th, and 17th. So yeah, right around kind of middle of the league. I will say again, it's the top 2 players that are carrying a lot of weight here once again, because Trey McBride, 27th overall, Marvin Harrison Jr., 39th overall. But James Conner is also a top 50 pick. Now, there's a big gap between those 3 dudes and the next guy on the list. I didn't spend time doing the 4th ADP player, but we are counting on those guys, and they are singular positions, so that might also kind of assuage some concerns here. But, Nate, I think there are definitely people in the fantasy space that hate the Cardinals offense. They hate Drew Petzing for what he did to Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. They hate Kyler Murray because he disappointed them last year in fantasy, and he can't see the middle of the field and can't throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. on the routes that he's best at. So do you share any concerns about this Cardinals offense, or are you seeing yet another like jump in the progression with the third year, like really the kind of like the second full year with Kyler Murray in the offense?
They got to watch the Cardinals film with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon playing. It'll sync up for them. That might work out for I don't know. Did you get that reference? Yeah. I never know what the reference is with you. Okay. No, with the Cardinals offense, I'll start with concerns. I'll jump into the deep end a little bit. They have a new offensive line coach. That's where my first concern will come with them. We have not done the NFC West pod, so I haven't really talked about these concerns. But yeah, they have a new offensive line coach, Justin Fry, who I just mentioned from Ohio State and Chip Kelly and stuff. This was the offensive line coach. If he's just overwhelmed as a he's never coached in the NFL. That is sometimes can be good, and that can sometimes be catastrophic. We saw last year with the Seahawks offensive line when they had a first-time offensive line coach who only coached college before, and it was catastrophic. And I've just seen this story in the past. Sometimes, though, it works. Sometimes it turns into Hank Fraley, who's the offensive line coach with the Lions. Yeah. But Hank Fraley also played in the NFL. So, Again, this is narrative scouting. But I also think this is a slower usage team. Maybe some of the concerns come with, okay, is that it? What they had last year? It was a pretty good offense with the underlying metrics, about 12th to 16th range and a lot of stuff. At times top 10 in other ways. So like they had a very explosive run game. Is it kind of just, was that it? Was that the step forward and the help on this team? I'm optimistic about the whole team. Maybe it's the defense that takes the leap and they become a better team overall. But maybe the offense was it. Maybe there is more Marvin Harrison Jr. usage, but it's kind of just like, well, okay, but we're still finishing the same way because we're a slow team. We also run the ball. They're going to be a run heavy team. Drew Petzing is going to be run heavy. That's just his football philosophy. I do think they pass a little bit more. And I don't want to get into the positive stuff yet. Just talk about the negatives, but just that's what I think brings it down, where they end up just being more average, 12th to 16th range, slightly above average, as opposed to making that leap. Kyler makes a leap, and Kyler's just more, this is what Kyler is. He's like the 14th. He's better in fantasy because of his rushing stuff, but in real football terms is more of that more 14th-ish kind of quarterback in the league, very streaky and just, it's hit or miss with him. So that's where maybe some of the concerns are. Having said that, I have differing views.
So I will say that when I go back and watch the Cardinals offense, the one thing I do push back on kind of the fantasy and maybe the consensus of it all is that like there's a lot of Drew Petzing shade. And I think from a like conceptual standpoint, what they do makes a lot of sense. I think like the run game and the pass game is pretty well married up together. They want to be like a physical run game, and then they want to push the ball over the deep middle of the field. I do think the Marvin Harrison Jr. usage has to change. There's no question about that. I think it will. And I'm not talking like full scale turn him into CeeDee Lamb or something, although their RP metrics from their rookie seasons are actually kind of similar. Like, and they're not that dissimilar from a build perspective. Like people think Harrison's
kind of be unlocked by being a slot guy. I mean, he's a really good route runner. That might open up there, So
100%. And he's a guy that, again, he's like leaner than you think. Now I know he's got the biceps this year. He's jacked. Obviously, he's been eating his protein. That's great. And I do think, by the way, being stronger to catch point would be nice. We'll see if the arms help there. Yeah. But regardless, I think we need some change in his alignment just to be a guy that's not I always talk about this, but 80-80 outside on the line of scrimmage players. Like the guys that I charted last year that did that, it's like Quentin Johnston, Nico Collins, badass, of course, George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, like that. Those we don't want to use Marvin Harrison Jr. like that. I didn't say other than Nico Collins. You hear me? I didn't say like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown. Like nobody uses their number one receiver like this anymore. So that does need to change. But I think conceptually the offense is pretty sound. The one thing I get hung up on though, Nate, is that I just don't think this is, and like maybe I'll be proven wrong. I just don't think this offense fits Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray doesn't fit this offense. So I could see this being like,
that's where concerns come from. Yeah, it's like,
yes.
was that the best it can look like? Like, okay, we want him to be, because again, it's not he's been in high tempo offenses his whole career. I mean, probably sixth grade onwards. So he gets a lot of bites at the apple. Like a lot of time, okay, that didn't work out. We get another, okay, we got plays. Now this type of offense is it's precise. You just mentioned how everything is in real football terms. That's why I kind of really dig it. Is because it's like, I appreciate that from a game planning perspective. But sometimes and I agree, because I've owned some of these Cardinals in fantasy terms. I mean, Trey McBride was a nice hit last year, because it's just that, all right, we're not going to run a lot of plays. These plays have to be perfect. Like, we can't have mistakes. We can't have throwaways. We can't have you miss a read. And last year was Kyler's, believe it or not, as a quarterback, just a true in pocket, controlling the offense, all those types of things. Traditional quarterback, that was Kyler's best season as a pro. And it's one of those things where I'm optimistic privately about it, and we'll talk more about it in the coming weeks, that I still think there's more to tap into. But I do think that his perfect offense, of course, is a spread it out, like just plays, let things go. Hey, let him just get the ball out quick, throw a deep shot, let him run a little bit, as opposed to more a precise offense like this. I do think that's perfectly, but I do think he has a skill set that can translate to this. We've seen guys with this type of skill set work. Like Russell Wilson worked in this offense, and Kyler has more polish to his game than, like, in some ways than Russ did, as far as working from the pocket and stuff like that. Yeah. And so that's why I think it can work. It's just that, I think they're it's equal as optimistic as I am, that I also have worries that, oh no, it did plateau last year. And okay, that's what he is. He's gonna have some good games like he did early in the year, but he's gonna have games where it's frustrating. He takes a sack when he shouldn't, throws a ball in harm's way when he shouldn't, misses a throw over the middle because he can't see it. And I'm not trying to be funny, because that's real what happens. Like that happens again too. So all those types of things.
Yeah, like when I wrote up Marvin Harrison's reception perception profiles, like his best route and his most commonly run route in the games I charted were dig routes. And it's like, I don't want to be mean here, but like people think, oh, they got to use them on more horizontally breaking routes. No, they did. The quarterback just can't see the routes. Like, I don't want to be mean here, but he's a tiny dude behind a big offensive line. Yeah. Like, it is what it is.
I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, but like, the best moments, because there's some weird moments with Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. where they just couldn't connect. He was really trying back shoulders, outside throws, go balls, outside throws. But the best routes that those two connected on, whether it was the 49ers game, the Dolphins game, and then there's one more, I think I missed off the top of my head, out routes. Because Kyler can see it.
Yeah, Rams game.
And Rams I think you're right. And they're all on third downs and fourth downs, like big plays. Kyler can see that, because these guys that are shorter, they throw those routes better. Every single one in the league. It's like it's since the dawn of time. Like Drew Brees is like one outlier, So it's but he can throw those out routes really well, and that's where Marvin Harrison Jr. Where, to your point, we're moving him around a little bit, get him into the slot, getting bunch sets, getting condensed sets, because then he can attack outside. That's where their game marries up. But it just, you want the flip side of the out routes. You want the in breakers, because then the teams will just go, all right, well, we'll just leverage you outside, so there's ways they can connect. I've seen some stuff in the preseason. Kyler hit him on a dig route, which I was like, okay, cool. There's a little bit more of that, but it has to just be consistent. And like, this really is kind of make or break. It really is for Kyler. I think I'm not the only one saying that, but he has to just be able to do that week in, week out. Otherwise it's like, all right, now we have bigger questions after this year.
Yeah, 100%. It is a make or break year. I love your idea about these, like the slot stuff for Harrison, or just again from condensed sets where you can get a free release with these guys and he can run those outbreakers or comeback routes. Now, in fairness to Kyler, who is a player I'm definitely hard on, but in fairness to Kyler, some of those like contested passes, Marvin Harrison's got to catch those too. Like he has to be better as an individual contested catch player in year 2. That's a part of this as well. My last note just on this team is that, like, I feel like the best I always come back to the Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur marriage, where it was like, hey, I do this as a play caller. You like this as a quarterback. How can we marry those two together? Because when we do, we're going to win you 2 MVPs, big dog. And like, you're going to shred through the league. I would love to see Pet Sing, like, again, sound conceptual play caller, Kyler, kind of this like hyper specific quarterback. If we can marry, I'm not saying he's going to win MVP, but if we can marry these two worlds together, I actually think that would be good enough for this team to support 3 top 50 players in fantasy. This is one that I'm not all that offended by, because again, I come back, final point here on this, to the concentration, where like the wide receiver 3 is probably like Zay Jones. We got Michael Wilson.
Yeah.
Like they talk about Trey Benson. I don't think they're really going to elevate him. Yeah. It's like nice role players, Nate. But to me, I think if we're concentrated and if you think there is some world where Petzing and Murray can continue to blend together, I actually think this one can be okay to support everybody where they're going.
I like you said, I'm not offended by anyone's rankings here. And that helps too in this offense, is that Trey McBride's real. Like, this is not projection. This is not getting ahead of ourselves. Like, they had sustained success. We talked about on the tight end show last week that probably not going to score a bunch of tight ends ever. Like, I think that's very real. But just overall, I think him and Kyler have great chemistry. So I also think that's where some ADP can be higher, because it's like, oh, they have a good tight end. Not a lot of teams have that. You know, they might have a couple good receivers, a couple other good players and stuff. So I think that also helps kind of outkick maybe against projections a little bit compared to the ADP.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk through 2 teams that are starting second-year quarterbacks this year that really, like, that's what it all comes down to. So can those 2 guys outkick expectations? We will break that down right after this quick break. All right, we are back. This is teams 3 and 3.5 here, because the next one on the list is the Minnesota Vikings, where there is a 10-spot difference. They're the 8th ranked team, Nate, in ADP ranking, and they're the 18th ranked offense in wisdom of the crowd. But I wanted to throw the Atlanta Falcons in here too, because there is a 6-spot gap here between them as the 12th ranked ADP team, because they have the 3rd overall player and the 17th overall player, which is still, by the way, too low. Drake London should be higher than that. But they're only the 18th ranked offense. So there's a 6-spot difference. So not nearly as dramatic as any of the other teams we're going to talk about here. But I honestly just wanted to group them together, because I think the gap here between how high their players are going in fantasy and, of course, like where they're projected from an offensive standpoint comes down to the quarterback position, right? Like we're splitting the rankers here are splitting the difference between these offenses, where they've just got them 18th, like on average 18th best offense in the NFL. So I feel like we talked about the Falcons a lot, so we can put them to the side for a second, and we'll just talk Penix when we get there because we don't need to do. I'd love to do 30 minutes on Drake London Appreciation Hour, but we don't have to do it now.
He's first in success rate per route from the slot.
I'll get it tattooed right here on the forearm. Tell me again. But I mean, Minnesota Vikings, obviously it comes down to JJ McCarthy. Any other hesitations about this offense besides the fact that we've not seen JJ McCarthy throw a football in a real NFL game ever?
Tackle health. Jefferson's, particularly Christian Darrisaw, I should say, left tackle. Justin Jefferson's hamstring. Jordan Addison's suspension. Those are like the biggest concerns, but I think they can weather that storm. I've seen this offense succeed without guys last year. I mean, Addison and Hawkinson to start the season. I think this year I'm pretty interested in the Vikings. I mean, just overall, just keeping an eye on them, just even outside McCarthy, because I just think it's fascinating what Kevin O'Connell has done over the years and just adding to this offense to kind of make it to insulate the quarterback from, putting everything on him. It helps when you have Justin Jefferson. But I do think with just this offense, I think they've done a lot to keep it from imploding. The one ranking I'm kind of like, squinting at is Aaron Jones because of the addition of Jordan Mason, where I think he's just going to eat into that. And especially, I think they want that split, especially those hard touches and short yardage and then the goal line. So I think he can eat some touchdowns. So I think that's the one I kind of squint at a little bit. But I mean, whatever your opinion is on Sam Darnold, I think most people don't think he's very good. It's like if McCarthy just has to be not very good, just average-ish. And I think the offense should be so much better than it was last year just because they helped the biggest weakness, which was the offensive line, which we've talked about a whole bunch. I mean, we've highlighted, hey, this was such a big move. They did such good things. I think that's what's going to help more than anything. That I think that I'm still pretty bullish on this offense because overall, and Jefferson's always going to get fed. He is the thing that makes this offense go. He dictates all the looks. I just think that the other guys, I think Mason's the one actually I'm buying more than the other guys because of just what Addison suspension, Aaron Jones, all that kind of stuff, because I think he's just going to vulture a whole bunch of touchdowns this year. And just this offense needed that. They needed that guy that can kind of punch it home because they get a lot of chances at it.
I'm also buying Jordan Mason. He was one of my breakout picks on the show we did yesterday with Faraz Siddiqui. I mean, he's a natural fit in as more of a gap runner than Aaron Jones, which is I think what they want to do. This, Nate, like all these Shanahan bros, and I think this is instructive for the next team too, even though we're not going to necessarily talk about Bijan Robinson accessing another level. All these guys that come off the it's more so the McVay tree because McVay did it himself. It's like eventually, when we get here, let's install some outside zone, but then the longer we do that, we kind of want to trend towards a more physical run game. That's exactly where the Vikings are right now, and I think that Jordan Mason fits that. Honestly, if I did because Jordan Addison and Jordan Mason are also both top 100 picks in consensus ADP, right. So they might be the most loaded team in terms of the top 100, but there's a lot of stuff influencing that, not just the split backfield. Jordan Addison's 3-game suspension is kind of involved in that as well. So there's definitely a lot on, in a weird way. Yes, JJ McCarthy is set up to succeed in this offense. People have talked about it as if he's just getting the keys to a Ferrari here, and that is true. Really good players around him, great coach to hand him those keys to set him on his way. Also a lot to support here. It's one of the best receivers in football. It's a run game that we want to get better, and two relevant pass catchers in Hawkinson and Addison. So I think, Nate, I'll put it to you this way to get the McCarthy question in here. Do you think he's a guy that can be more of a singles and double hitter than Sam Darnold was? Because the difference with Darnold was it was just kind of very boomer bust and volatile.
I actually think it's going to be this first year is going to be kind of similar to what Darnold was. McCarthy's willing to, this offense kind of induces this anyways, or kind of makes this happen anyways, that you're pushing the ball. So no matter what, unless you're just an absolute freak like Tom Brady that last year with the Bucs, stuff's going to happen, especially when your first year starting in the NFL. Even the best, I think there's just going to have games where it's a high wire act when you're just pushing the ball over and over and over. And that's what this offense is going to do. It's such a cool way of attacking. They'll take a sack on second down, and there they are, 3rd and 14, chucking it down the field. And I think O'Connell wants to lean into that. I think what this whole offensive system was to help McCarthy, so he wasn't put into a lot of those situations. So they The offense is going to hit the singles and doubles, but I think the passing game, so I mean the run game, I should say, but I think the passing game is still going to be hunting explosives because I think that's just what they base their whole attack on, which I agree with. It's an offensive philosophy I agree with. Really, I think just a sidebar, like I'm buying Addison even with the suspensions because I just think that
really?
he is unlocked a role in this offense that works. And I think they love him. They love highlighting him. He's a red zone monster in a weird way. And Jefferson draws a lot of attention. So on a per game basis, as a guy that maybe to get a little cheaper because of that suspension, like he is one that I am buying kind of more of a guy later in drafts, I should say, middle drafts, I should say.
Okay, well, if you love a run game that hits the singles and doubles, but the passing game hunts for the big plays, that perfectly transitions us to the Atlanta Falcons.
It's the exact same type of attack. What offensive system did he come from? Yep.
Hard to say. These two guys may have crossed family trees here at some point from a coaching perspective. But like we've actually talked a lot about Penix because we did the second year quarterback review on 301. We just did the NFC South preview with our buddy Charles McDonald over there as well. So we've talked a lot about this. I definitely, Nate, I'm pretty optimistic about this offense. And again, there wasn't that from a ADP to wisdom of the crowd ranking perspective, there wasn't that big of a gap with this team. But I don't know, like final stance kind of on Michael Penix as we get closer here to week 1. Are you optimistic about him as a guy who can unlock a further ceiling from an offense that was already rather efficient last year?
I think it's better for what this offense is built. Is it great for everybody? No, but this offense was so hyper efficient last year offensively. And the thing that was kneecapping them was, Kirk Cousins couldn't move. So a passing game, it's hard to win with a quick passing game, meaning the ball gets out quick and it's underneath, and a run game. You just have to have really, really good talent to break a lot of tackles and create those explosives. So if you want to be a run-first attack, which the Falcons should be, even if they're excited about Penix, they should be a run-first attack because they got Bijan freaking Robinson and a good offensive line. And last year they were tied for the most efficient run game since freaking 2002. So I'd be like, let's keep that going. That should be the basis of our attack. But I think Penix is going to be boom bust as a quarterback. I think every week he's going to have 1 to 3 highlight throws that get us giddy. But I also think there's going to be some maddening stretches where he misses 3-4 throws, and just kind of misses an easy opportunity. I think that's the type of quarterback that he is. I have kind of come to the comparison of Jay Cutler to him, where it's just like he has a huge arm, but with some inconsistency to his accuracy. So I think offensively, though, how this attack looks, how it looked at the end of last year, how I picture the Rams through the Atlanta lens, how I picture Penix. I think London is just going to eat so much of the passing game. I think it's going to be huge, heavy share London, for justifiably, I might add. But that I'm just trying to figure out where to rank Pitts. We talked about the tight end stuff, or where to rank anybody outside of Bijan and London. But I do think this is going to be a good offense. Like I do think it's going to be a top half offense, even if Penix might have some lulls this year because he's just kind of going to be scattershot.
Well, two things. One of the hosts of this show,
and they have a bad defense.
That's another thing too. Yeah, they're going to be pushing that ball. They're going to need to score. Yeah. But yeah, one of the two current hosts of the show may or may not have bet on Drake London to lead the NFL in receiving yards this morning. So I am with you on the Drake London volume take. But the other thing I wanted to mention too is you talk about like where to rank the third person. The good news about that, Nate, is nobody you actually don't have to care. Because while while Bijan Robinson is the third player off the board in consensus ADP, and Drake London is the 17th. So that puts him second among like how high the number 2 player is drafted from an individual team. The only one higher than him is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the 9th player in ADP. Kyle Pitts, 125th player off the board because Darnell Mooney is banged up and there's like no real clarity on when he's going to be back. He's the 6th lowest third player that's drafted. So again, when we talk about a team with uncertain quarterback play, and I'm pretty optimistic. I'm like neutral leaning optimistic on Penix unlocking this offense. But when it's kind of murky quarterback play and we don't quite know these, that, and the others, like it might be the 18th best offense in the league. Again, high concentration. This thing is going to run through 2 guys, and that's pretty much it.
And I can envision it. Again, it's not as much theory or like true projection. Like I've already seen it, what a version of this looks like. Yeah, they're going to diversify throughout the season and kind of change up maybe some of the attack and won't be crazy Drake London usage. But I do think that I think that they're not going to be foolish and just go, this is where we kind of make our bones at. And I think also Zach Robinson has that Sean McVay to him, where, you know, KOC is different in this regard, but I think that he wants to have a running back on the field for all the touches and then have one guy to spell him for 20. It's more of a 75-25 split, as opposed to maybe 50-50, 60-40. I love Algier, but I think that's just their offensive system. I also think just their offense, because it's going to be very touchdown to check down, that Bijan will get some of those checkdowns and kind of eat up some of those touches as well. So he'll get some of those dirty touches and make the most of them. It's going to look like some version of what the run game and that play action stuff. I'm hoping there's more play action stuff with Todd Gurley, you know, in the good years with the Rams. Not to that level, but I don't think. But I'm that's what I'm picturing. That's what the ideal version of Bijan is, anyways. And I'm with you that I think Penix is going to help this offense because he's going to hunt for explosives and kind of create more space for everybody else to work, and that's including Bijan and Drake London. I think other guys will get targeted in that way.
Penix scrambled 4 times in 3 games last year. So
he chucks it.
He's not taking off.
College.
He's going to check that thing down. Exactly. He's checking that thing down to Bijan Robinson. So again, that's another way for him to get more explosive plays. In addition to what I think is going to be more gap runs this year in that offense. Well, they can't get any less. They were the most zone heavy team in the NFL last year. So I like the way this is trending for Atlanta. So we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're actually going to go back to the NFC West here, talk about the Seattle Seahawks and whether we think that offense can come together or not. We'll get right into that right after this quick break. All right, we are back. Next team up we are talking through here is the Seattle Seahawks, who were the 13th team in ADP rank. Their number 1 drafted player is Jackson Smith-Njigba, 32nd overall. They're getting kind of boosted up the ranks here because their second drafted player is not that far behind. Kenneth Walker, the third, is 43rd overall. That being said, Nate, wisdom of the crowd, projection rank is 23rd best offense in the league. So we got about a 10-spot gap here between ADP rank, wisdom of the crowd projections. So I think I understand the skepticism around the Seahawks. Obviously we're subbing out the hipsters film watching favorite, which is Geno Smith. And then we're subbing in, the Sam Darnold
Hey.
oligarchs can be happy about this, right? what's the crossover between the Geno Smith hipsters and the Sam Darnold oligarchs? I need to get in the lab and figure that out.
I think it's me and Mina. I think that's two of us right there that we overlap on those two. I'm trying to think of anybody else.
I don't think you're not the biggest. No, see, Greg hates Sam Darnold, but he's a Geno.
He hates
Darnold,
right?
I don't group you into. That's super unfair. I'm sure Greg doesn't hate Sam Darnold, but I don't view you as one of the. Now we're like talking about football Twitter lore that nobody cares about, but I don't view you as like one of the true blue Geno Smith bros in that. I think
I'm more like I like him. I think he's good, but
you're hanging out. You're hanging out in the yard, but you're not living in the house. If that makes sense.
I think my favorite thing to do is because I'm more of like, yeah, I like Geno. I'm not as crazy. I'm not putting him top 10, but I think some people, I love when people come at him. It gets people in a feverish about it. They get frothing at the mouth, and I love just taking a clip and just throwing in a grenade. And then just going and just watching what happens, and just watching all the zombies run at the loud noise. That's the kind of,
yeah, it truly
is. It'll happen in about, week 8, somewhere between week 7 and 10. Like that happens every year with Geno, but he's not in the Seahawks anymore. So, the Raiders fans aren't as online as Seahawks fans. So maybe that'll change some of it as well.
That's a good point.
But no, yeah. So I think, that was way too long of an answer about Geno lore online. But yes, I also like Darnold Smith, more than most people
know. Right. So, this is another offense, by the way, where I'm very confident actually that Clint Kubiak comes in here and sets a floor. I think this is a team that I can't see sinking to like the bottom of the league, but can we get 2 top 50 players here in Kenneth Walker and JSN out of like the 23rd best offense? Because Nate, even if I like Clint Kubiak and I really like Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I think the run game it might not kick ass to the degree that they kicked ass in the preseason game against the Chiefs, but I do think it's going to be a pretty good run game. I still think all that can be true. And yeah, they might be somewhere between 20 to 23rd in offensive rankings here.
It's funny. I more agree with the ADP than the consensus rankings or the wisdom of the crowd rankings, but I think it's more the ADP should go other places. if that makes sense.
Ooh, okay.
Like I think I know that doesn't totally make sense, but I think Charbonnet should be getting, drafted higher than he is. Kenneth Walker is like finally just came back to practice, but it's not like an optimistic comes back to practice today. He's missed time every single year. He's going to miss time. That's what he does. Cooper Kupp is, I think, just going to be a role player in this offense, while I think AJ Barner is a fun buy. Where I think Torrey Horton will come on in this offense down the road. I don't think he'll be great in fantasy this year. I think that's more of a dynasty buy. But we know we're both fans of Torrey Horton. I think JSN is going to be higher than 32 here at ADP as well, because he'll be featured in this offense. And I think this offense, Kubiak is kind of very much with the Rosetta Stone of the Shanahan offense. And if they just have one guy they like to feature, they're going to feature him. It's just going to be bootlegs to him over the stuff. They're just going to, it's him in motion coming across the middle, like making sure he's at the target on choice routes, making sure he's coming into the progression every single time. And Darnold, as chaotic as he can be, he also is very much the Shanahan offense is good for him because it puts the training wheels on where he's going to go 1 to 2 to 3. So if one is JSN over and over and over, I think he's going to be the main mouth to feed. So I'm very high on JSN. I know you are, but I'm high on this offense. And I think freaking in preseason, they've looked great. The offensive line, Gray Zabel looks like a hit, their left guard. So I think the offensive line or this offensive system was going to provide a high floor, but I think they have more of a ceiling and more explosiveness than I think people might be giving them credit for, even now, even with some of those good preseason performances, because I think the O-line is actually going to be decent. They've solved a few answers. Again, I don't want to spoil our NFC West show, but I do think they've solved a couple things there. I shouldn't say solved, but they might have more answers there than maybe I anticipated a month ago. And Gray Zabel looks like he's hitting the ground running, and it looks like AJ Barner's real, and it looks like Elijah Arroyo's real. So just like it looks like it's one of these needles they actually threaded. At least that's what it looks like they're doing right now. But that's why I'm pretty optimistic about where this offense is going.
I mean, damn, Gray Zabel had Nate Tice, out like tweeting a preseason highlight reel of a rookie left guard.
Left guard. First thing in the morning with my coffee. First thing I did in the morning. God. I was like, I'm going to go watch some Gray Zabel.
What a sick pup. I love it.
I know.
What a sick freak. That's beautiful.
I've been kind of preaching about this Oluwatimi at center, and then they've been starting giving this Jalen Sundell, who's also a North Dakota State Bison. So their center and their left guard are both from North Dakota State. He looked amazing in the preseason. And that's where now my head's changing a little bit, going like, well, the center might not just be from like average. Remember, Oluwatimi was like my league average player for our all average show.
Yes, that's right.
Like now I think they might have a plus left guard, a plus center, or above average. Charles Cross is a good player. And then Abe Lucas, when he's on the field, is a good player. It's like they might go from crap at O-line to like decent, like pretty good. And that, again, changes the ceiling of this whole offense and really just the whole team. Don't want to spoil too much. But again, I'm pretty optimistic about this whole thing. I think Charbonnet, though, should be a little bit higher. Long story short.
No, and Justin Boone and I just talked about this on our preseason week 2 takeaways, where I'm in on Kenneth Walker as a 4th round pick because I know he's got injury concerns, but people need to be this is so funny when we get to fantasy draft season every year, where like I just did a Discord AMA in our Yahoo Fantasy Plus Discord because I'm just, every hour of my day is taken up by something.
See that? I know you just keep coming on the timeline. I'm like, you're going like another Q&A, another AMA, another live video.
Nobody has ever needed to disappear from society more than me. Anyways, way too much Matt Harmon in everybody's life, including my own. But anyways, what the hell was I talking about? No, so somebody in the Discord asked me, I was like, I really love drafting Tucker Kraft. They're like, aren't you concerned about the target share in Green Bay? I'm like, brother, he goes in like the 8th, 9th round. There's a concern about every player. And like, frankly, Kenneth Walker going to the 4th round, people need to be realistic about, like, once you get outside the top 2 rounds, everybody's got a concern. So yes, am I concerned that Kenneth Walker could miss time with injuries? Hell yeah. That's why he goes in the 4th round, not the 1st round. All that being said, I still think you can, if like you probably shouldn't draft. I don't agree with drafting both of them on one team because I think you're capping your upside there and you're trying to like cover your ass. It's a cover your ass pick, not a win your league pick. And I'm trying to win my league picks. So like, I would rather be like, I didn't get Kenneth Walker in the 4th round. That's when I'm coming back around in the 7th or whatever round and taking Zach Charbonnet. Because I do think this run game is going to be really good. I think this run game, again, Kubiak sets a floor here. And I think the coaching upgrade, it just cannot be overstated here because like the pass game and the run game was like living in 2 different worlds last year under Ryan Grubb. Mm-hmm. You've highlighted like the offensive line issues, the protection issues, just the assignment stuff that was wrong.
It was all bad.
I just think like we'll see like maybe in 2 to 3 years from now, we're having a ceiling conversation on the Seattle Seahawks offense, much like we did with the Houston Texans. Like, okay, we did the Shanahan greatest hits. Now let's do something else. But I think for this year, again, this is another offense where, to me, I really only cared about 2 players. Like, I care about JSN and I care about insert starting running back here. Like, Cooper Kupp, I think, is in the preseason, you saw him doing like 2017 Cooper Kupp stuff. And what I mean by that is like, chip the guy, run out in the flat. Yep. That's it. And I think that's mostly what his role is going to be, which is essentially it's the crap button for Sam Darnold. Like, I'm under pressure. Cooper's over there. I dump that thing off to him. So I think actually Nate, honestly, of all the offenses that we've talked about so far relative to expectations, this is the one that I am pretty confident they're not going to completely pee down their leg once we get to the regular season.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's the thing is where there's the Darnoldness of it all. And I think that's hanging over it. And it's not Geno
famous
Smith
last words. Who's so unlikely to pee down their legs in a big moment? Definitely not Sam Darnold.
So that's the thing too. And even in real football terms, it's just like, well, you always got that kind of hang in there, just standing in the corner. Right. It's just that Darnold might crap out. But I do think again, we're talking more fancy terms. I think there's just going to be, like you keep saying, the floor is going to be high in this offense. And I completely agree. And I think just in real football terms and some fancy terms that I'm just looking that I think the ceiling is higher. But again, that all relies on Darnold. The cap of a Shanahan offense and the ceiling of Shanahan offense really depends on the passing downs. 2nd and long, 3rd down, Where are the passing downs? Because the early downs are so good typically, and they want to win those downs. Well, then if it's Darnold and JSN and this passing tag, I guarantee it'll be volatile. But I don't think it'll be bad. But volatile also means good at times. But I don't think it'll be, there's going to be times where it is Darnold throwing a stupid pick as he gets pressured. There's going to be times where he makes a highlight throw that makes me giddy and I'm tweeting out or something of that sort. But I do think that because of that they're going to end up one of these kind of teams fighting for a wild card spot with an offense that might be more middle of the pack and have moments where it looks like a top 5 offense even because the run game's clicking and Darnold's not putting third and longs. But I do think there's going to be times where they don't have the firepower, and the firepower is, Darnold's brain, slash maybe another receiver that scares, maybe deep speed. We'll see with Torrey Horton, but maybe another passing weapon that scares them. Maybe the passing concepts are great, yada, yada. Like maybe is a cap passing down wise against tougher defenses.
All right. Well, we think the floor is relatively high on this team. The next 2 teams we're going to talk about, I think this is where we start to get to 2 offenses where we could really talk about some bottoming out here. We're going to get to one of those teams, the Miami Dolphins, right after this quick break. I'm sure the commenters, as we come back in here, Nate and the people listening at home, hey, I thought this was the bust show. Like, when are we going to talk about something that really goes wrong? We've saved it here till the back part of the show.
Honking that horn right now.
Right. Like, listen. If you're this is where it's like, if you're gonna get a big fat flaming bust in fantasy football, I think it's gonna come from one of these 2 teams here. Starting with the Miami Dolphins here for our first team, which they are the 6th ranked team in ADP rank because Devon Achane is a 14th overall ADP. Tyreek Hill is 28th overall, and Jalen Waddle is 73rd overall. Those are all like relative to the first, second, third player drafted from a team. Those are all that like in the top half, right? They're closer to like top 10s at each position than anything else. Meanwhile, they're the 13th ranked team in the wisdom of the crowd offensive projections. So not horrible, but that is still good for a 7-point gap. They go anywhere from like 12 to 16, basically. Actually, Vegas is the lowest on them in terms of like projected points per game, which I think makes sense. Like DVOA, they're always an efficiency scam, but like, yeah, how many points are we really going to score here? So Nate, I'm really concerned about the Dolphins. Like straight up, the only guy I've like actively drafted into is Jalen Waddle because of the 3 guys he goes the cheapest. And I've made my feelings known about like the Tyreek Hill stuff at this point, but I don't know. I'm very down on the Dolphins. Where are you at this point?
I'm very down on the Dolphins. My first notes are fade, 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 fade. It's vibes are bad. Offensive line is getting workshopped as the season's going to
Love
go
that.
along. Uh,
Love
love
that.
that. And even if I like Patrick Paul long term, and I like Jonas Savania, who they drafted in the second round long term, I like Aaron Brewer as a good solid player. Those are still two unproven. That's an unproven left side, along with a reworked right side with a solid center, with a pretty good center. That's not for an offense that was getting hit in the backfield, like 5 yards in the backfield, like on average in plays last year. It's not what I want. It's not what I wanted to see out of this team. The defensive line's interesting, but offensively, I'm kind of also thinking last year I was almost disappointed. One, when Tua was healthy and when he was not healthy, where I was kind of, I won't say the fireworks factory, but it was like, where's the new ideas? Where's that next, Mike McDaniel, you were cooking. And I was really really liking how it was kind of reworking some modern or some old school staple concepts and finding new versions of them. I've said it was always like the Shanahan offense on LSD. And now they kind of just like said, we're off of that. Like, we're just kind of just going to be, all right, we're going to do these ones that did work. Well, even though defenses now have answers to, say, like one of their favorite RPOs or one of their favorite play actions, they're like, well, we're going to keep working at it. We just got to find better. We just got to keep running and we'll find a better answer on that, as opposed to finding something new to run to help, provide a change up. Also just think the vibes wise, like they're like, we're going to be tough. Like, we're just turn on that switch. Achan's already battling an injury, a calf injury.
Right.
For an undersized speed guy. I love Achan as a real football player as well. But that's always going to be a concern, especially how the usage that they give him, where he's out in space taking shots and taking hits. Where now I'm running back wise, I'm like, all right, is it Jalen Wright? He hasn't really impressed. Is it Ollie Gordon? Like, it's just a mess of a team. Tyreek Hill, it seems like he's trying to good faith his way back into his teammates' graces. That's not what I want. So, like, I'm with you. You just said Jalen Waddle's the only one I'm kind of buying. That's exactly my mindset on this. It's like maybe one of the backup running backs later, like maybe Ollie Gordon has a late dart throw, but it's just one of these offenses I'm kind of staying away from when we're talking about busts. They're signing Darren Waller, after retirement.
Talk about out of ideas.
It's just out of ideas. That's what this whole operation feels like. So it's just a team overall. There's aspects I like defensively, they have a defensive line that's really cool. Like, I do like some of the offensive ideas that they've had, but it feels like it's run its course. Maybe they surprise all of us, but the trajectory has just kind of seemed pretty obvious to anyone paying attention for the last 18 months, 22 months, basically the second half of 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they'll just have to beat the odds in order to do that. So one thing before I want to talk about Devon Achane, but one thing just to note here too, like when Jonnu Smith was traded, the first reaction that basically every fantasy person had was, all right, wheels up for Achane, wheels up for this player, whatever. Yeah. My first thought was, I think you guys forgot how good the Jonnu Smith plays were last year.
Yes.
Team success rate when targeted last year, 64% for Jonnu Smith. He was 10 percentage points higher than the second place player in Jalen Waddle at 54%. EPA per target, 0.51, led the team. Nobody else was higher than 0.43. Like, the Jonnu Smith plays were good. Like, that was actually
the best part.
Was like a little bit of, it was the best part of the offense this year. That was actually Mike McDaniel doing a little bit of something different, and everybody hated it because it took targets away from the wide receivers and took scammy stuff away from Achane, and then he's traded, he's out of there. Well, we don't do that anymore. We're just going to go back to whatever we were doing before. So, like, I think that is a bigger problem from an ecosystem perspective than people are giving credit for. The Achane stuff, I do just think, number one, say it all the time, the Scott Pianowski line. Injuries are going to find you throughout the course of the fantasy football season. You do not need to draft into them willingly in August. And Mike McDaniel is he's not a reliable narrator when it comes to the injuries. That's known. He says it's going to be days to weeks. I mean, Nate, imagine if our bosses here at Yahoo said, we'll file your paycheck, but it might be days to weeks. I'd want to know the difference, okay? Like, is it going to be days or is it going to be weeks? Those are two different time periods. Two different time periods. And then the other part of this, too, just from an on-field perspective, again, the argument for Achane is, well, as a rookie, he was this crazy efficient runner. And then last year, he was this high volume kind of pass catcher. What if in year 3, he just becomes both? And my argument is, what if in year 3, he becomes neither? Right? Because I think number one, the rushing efficiency, he's never going to get to 7 yards per carry again, but I just can't even imagine this being a good run game based on like the offensive line and just the construction of the team. Plus, we did this with the Raiders. Talk about a secondary that is going to get cooked all year long. How often are they going to be in run first game scripts? And then lastly, before I throw it back to you, just the heavy screen usage for Achane, like he did get a lot of snaps from the slot, like more than your usual running back, but his like air yards per target is so low on those slot snaps. Like it's not as if he was running real downfield routes. So again, is this just, let me tell you what, if this offense is a bunch of Achane screens, this offense is going to stink. So I just have a lot of skepticism about like even the player that's going highest here. I think he is more of like if you're taking him, you better be doing it in the back half of the second round, not closer to the first round turn where he's been going.
You don't want to buy any of these guys at cost or reach for any of them. That's how I look at it. Like Tyreek's, they're going to have blow up weeks. Like they're going to have great weeks where it's all clicking. Like this offensive system can do that. They had moments last year when Tua came back where it looked pretty good, but it's just that the baseline of it is just going to be frustrating. It's a very injured roster too. So, I mean, every single one of these players has had injury history. Their quarterback has injury history. They have offensive linemen that have injury history. They have defenders that have injury history. Like that's their method. They go for speed. I'm not like joking about it. Like they go for speed and they just wave away injury stuff because that's their methodology. Like we talk about that. Like that's what they go for. So it's going to always just be a frustrating thing. And we talked about how your starting point, we can shy away from these teams and just avoid risk. Like, yes, you can chase that dragon of these boom weeks that this offense is going to provide, but you can't forget the lull weeks, those weeks where it's just nothing's going on, or the injured weeks and everything. So I think the Dolphins are a perfect example of what this whole exercise is about it. Just an offense I just want to avoid. And there's just so much certainty in the uncertainty with this team right now that I'm kind of just like staying away overall. I'm just watching them from afar because I'm just as a franchise trying to figure out what their goal is.
100%. And look, I think Jalen Waddle is an underrated player. Like I think he's getting too much blame last year for honestly, like, again, we don't have the time and this is like, I'm going to do the football 301 plug here. Like, cause we don't have the time and space in this podcast to break down all of the things I want to talk about with you tomorrow. So if you're listening to this and you want to hear more about the Dolphins and Dolphins negativity, listen to us on Football 301 tomorrow. So there's some little cross promotion there, some little company wide stuff. You don't get enough Matt Harmon in your life, so you clearly need more.
I get to save some notes too. It's great. I was about to share them, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep these. I'm going to keep these for the next show.
100%. So I'll get into the nitty gritty on that show about why I think that like Waddle's efficiency metrics fell off last year when I don't think his play really fell off that much, relative to the fact that I do think Tyreek Hill has begun the decline. And I've talked about that on this show before, shared some of the reception perception data that shows how he was on that decline. Like, again, could he be a useful player this year? I think he could, but like a declining player with like as this volatile type person that he clearly is. I mean, he's out there like saying Achane shouldn't be the goal line back, and then they use Jalen Wright in the preseason. He gets like stuffed 3 times. Funny. So just again, the bad vibes are there. I just think if I was Miami, I'd be trying to maximize the younger player that we gave a bunch of money to over the guy that quit the team in week 18. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, Waddle is the guy that if you believe we're wrong and you do believe in this offense, like I think the guy to take is Waddle because he goes, again, 73rd overall in consensus ADP, a guy that you could take in the 6th round or something like that, 7th round maybe, depending on your format. And I do think there's a ceiling projection there, Nate, because otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. I'm just so skeptical about this unit, but we'll get into more of it tomorrow. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm even looking at Tyreek Hill's contract, and it's not even like that movable either. It's exactly it. Like his game, because it's so speed based, and then his route running is no one can run routes how he does because it's so speed based. It's just he's this unique mover. Like you can't copy Randy Moss. Like you can't copy Tyreek Hill and what he does when you're so speed based and you don't have the personality type to go like I'm going to evolve my game and I'm going to evolve my role into something different. That's why it's kind of an easy fade, at least for me. And this is where the combination of on-field stuff like you're talking about, analytical stuff like we're talking about, but also just narratively, you put it all together. It's like, yeah, I'm shying away from that beat up Ford over there. I'm gonna stay away from that lemon.
All right, we are going to take our last break. When we come back, we have one more team to talk through, and it is in the same division. We will get into the New York Jets right after this quick break. All right, we are back. Last team to talk about here, our sixth offense to be a little bit concerned about. And if you can't tell, I've got the tone of voice where I'm a little bit bummed about this because I do kind of want to believe in some of these players here for the New York Jets. But and Nate, I know this is another team we're talking about on 301 tomorrow, so definitely make sure people out there to tune into that one. But look, ADP rank wise, they are 23rd. So it's not as if they're the lowest team here that we're talking about. Nobody's asking like, yeah, you really got to buy into the Jets. But I will say there's an imbalance here because they are 30th in Wisdom of the Crowd total projections here. Nobody thinks this team is going to be good. As a matter of fact, DVOA actually has them projected as the 32nd offense in the league. And really the concerning thing here is that they have two players going at 31st and 35th overall, whereas their third player is Braylon Allen at 143rd overall. So that's actually saving them from being even higher in the ADP ranks than 23. So I think we talked about this team somewhat recently. I feel like you and I, Nate, and maybe you said this could be like kind of a bad team. Yeah. Like maybe like kind of, I think we talked about
You're highlighting Mimbao, their right tackle they drafted. Yeah. And
yes, preseason. Yes. Dude, I have no idea when anything happened.
It's all merged together.
It's who knows. Get me
going
to week
through my
one.
notes every day is just going like, what show was that again? Control F.
Yeah.
Search.
Like I said, I'm like, I know somebody was talking about the Jets, and I'm pretty sure I saw you on the other end of it. So again, I think we did talk about them, and you've maybe framed it as like an offense that could be a bad team beater, an offense that maybe could be a little similar to like the 2022 Falcons. Nate, what if this offense is really, really bad? Because like Justin Fields is just Justin Fields. Like that is starting to worry me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the passing game is going to stink. I think outright. I've watched enough. I've pictured what it looks like. I'm kind of going, I don't think it's going to be high volume. I think it's going to be boom bust. I don't think Fields matches up well with Garrett Wilson as far as synergy wise. I do though. Why we had that segment was
why do you
like,
think that though? Like, because why do you think that Fields doesn't match up with Wilson? Because that is interesting to me.
Wilson to me seems like a guy that would thrive with a quick thrower, a guy that's just going to get the ball out quick and let him go to work. Short and intermediate guy. He can do other things, but a guy just let him go to work, let him run choice routes, run slants, let him run screen stuff. A guy like Cam Ward actually would be amazing with Garrett Wilson in my eyes. But it's just that I think when I watch it, Justin Fields is a big game hunter as a quarterback, where he is attacking down the field. It's touchdown to check down for him. He also takes a long time to release throws. He is never going to ever going to be good at quick game ever, or RPOs, or the screen game is also going to get hindered in this offense because he just has such an elongated baseball motion. This is a guy. Anyone that is just introduced to me, I was pretty high on Justin Fields coming into as a pro. I've just realized that this is what he is as a player, as a professional. So as a prospect, I was high on him, but to me, there's limitations to his game. They actually like the upside of him was, maybe he's a big Russell Wilson. And then now I've seen him. It's like, no, he is Russell Wilson, but it's all the downsides of him as a passer on top of just being a plus runner. But why I'm bringing up Fields is just everybody else is going to get hindered passing game wise. But I do think the run game is going to be very good. The offensive line is going to be good. Like I think they hit the right tackle, Mimbow. Elijah Vera Tucker, their right guard, if he's healthy, he's a very good right guard. Tittman's kind of the one question mark, but I think he's been playing well. Simpson's a nice vet. And then Olufashanu looks like a very good left tackle they drafted last year. And they helped out getting a tight end, Mason Taylor, and who actually has been blocking well in the preseason, which has been nice. Where I think Fields is going to help because he's a running quarterback, one of the better ones. He's going to help unlock some of the run game stuff, some of the read plays. But I think Wilson gets hit hard. I also think Breece Hall is going to get hit hard because of the emergence of Braylon Allen. I'm buying as much Braylon Allen stock as possible. I said on that show, I think this is his backfield by the end of the season. And I think that's earlier than later. Or at the very least a split. And I think they love him. And I think he's looked excellent in the preseason, while Breece Hall has looked more like solid to good. So yeah, that's the guy in this offense I'm buying, but everybody else I'm fading pretty hard.
Yeah, listen.
Other than that, how's the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah, right. So terrific.
I saved all the bust stuff for the very end, and then I was like, all right, here we go. Yes. Let's get this out.
Yes. Like, so they don't hate you. So the audience doesn't hate you from the start. Like, let's let them hate you here at the
Ease
end.
them in.
Correct. Yes. So yeah, a lot of different things to go off of here. But the one thing that is interesting to me is that I do think, like, from a Garrett Wilson perspective, I do think the way he's going to be used is going to be much better under Tanner Engstrand. I realize Engstrand is a total unknown, but it truly can't get much worse than what we saw last year in the archaic Nathaniel Hackett. Like, all we're doing is running goes and slants, and Rodgers is just trying to guess it pre-snap, and he's not guessing it very well. So, like, Rodgers, despite being a guy that used to get the ball out quick and all that stuff, he ended up being a really bad fit with Garrett Wilson.
Right.
There's part of me that thinks Fields could be a little bit better with Wilson because of that, but man, I just don't know if he, like, we talk about, can Caleb Williams fit a Ben Johnson offense? If they're going to do Ben Johnson stuff in the pass game in this offense, I don't think Justin Fields fits with that at all.
Nope. Nope.
And you mentioned like the rushing stuff. I say it all the time. I don't think Fields wants to run. Like, I know, like, I have mentioned that clip where he rolled his eyes, like, talking about his rushing ability back on the stage at Eckler's Edge, like, a few years ago in the interview we did with him. And then last year he was second in check down percentage among guys with 100+ dropbacks, behind only
Andy huge Dalton. Check down guy. People don't realize that.
Right.
He is a huge check down guy, because look at his air yard stuff. It's always artificially low because of that. Should say artificially.
Yes, you gotta. Yeah, you gotta like make him. You gotta make him run basically at this point in his career. Yeah. Like three scramble touchdowns last year. There will be some of that, but that's like the whole. That's the whole basis of this offense. Like, in the whole basis of the Fields thing. If he doesn't want to or isn't going to be a proactive runner, it's over. Okay, like, it's over before it even begins. So, I'm not taking Breece Hall. I've docked him down in my rankings. I'm not taking him as the 31st freaking overall player. Garrett Wilson's a guy that I want to believe in, but he goes in that third round range where I'm not targeting wide receivers.
It's
and I'll take.
It's
It's
not
not his fault.
That's like that. That's the thing. Anyone that's like a Jets fan or anything, it's not Garrett Wilson's fault. It's everything around him. That's
Garrett Wilson's
down.
Awesome. And I want to believe that the next quarterback in here will be the guy to unlock him. I just don't know if it's going to be Justin Fields. And like, I wish look, preseason stats, training camp stats can be super misleading. Then again, it would be nice if we got one, hey, Fields was 10 of 13 today, as opposed to, 1 of 8 or whatever gets reported every single day out of New York. So again, this is an offense that I think could be like a bit of a, hey, Nate Tice is telling us in week 8, like, oh yeah, well, I watched this team and I think conceptually,
look at the concept they're running. Look at that run game they're running.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a weird little curiosity, but when it comes to putting fantasy points in the box score, I don't think this team is very well set up. So I haven't been taking Hall. I haven't been taking Garrett Wilson, but I'm with you on the Braylon Allen thing where big physical back probably does fit. I know this offensive line I think is going to be good. Like I think they're going to get it going there. So it's a committee backfield. They've told us it's a committee backfield. Like Braylon Allen at 143rd overall or Breece Hall at 31st overall. Very easy decision for me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. It's someone I'm targeting and everything. Like it's just, it's so obvious how they're speaking about it too. Like they're not like saying anything bad about Breece Hall, but they're not like exactly going out of their way to prop him up. And I think with Braylon Allen, they're just like, look at him go. They're like Vince McMahon trying to hype up somebody. Like, look at him. Oh my God. Look at those muscles. Isn't he? Oh my God. So that's where it's pretty obvious. And just Allen looks good. Like watching those games, and Breece he went from a guy with such great tempo and vision that now it really seems like he's pressing. And this happens to guys where it just seems like he is maybe misreading things just a little bit. And that was his superpower. So I don't think he's like, I'm not saying that he's bad or anything. I still think he is a good running back. Like I think he should start for a lot of teams. It's just, I think Braylon Allen's just one of these guys that's just going to take it by force just over time. And I think they're going to encourage him to do that. So it's just something I'm kind of keeping my eye on. But again, I think I keep making the joke that this team is going to be like a bunch of Greg Maddux starts. Like their games are going to last 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes, because they're going to run the ball so much. And it's just going to go boom, boom, boom. We'll be out of there. And all of a sudden they're going to be struggling to fill it out with another game finishing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. If you have them for whatever reason, if you want to throw the Jets up on the 4 box on the Sunday ticket, that box is going to, it'd be like game over before any of the others. So 100, or you're going to be doubled up on a game there. So that will be the New York Jets 2025 season. Nate Tice, I appreciate the hell out of you doing this show, man. It was a weird, wild ride with my spreadsheets and the color codes that I had to send to you at God knows what hour last night. I made you say some negative things about the Cardinals. You toughed it out with me here, buddy. Besides our AFC East preview, where we're going to talk even more sad things about these two teams, maybe some more positives because the Jets defense I think could be interesting. Besides that, we've got on Football 301 coming up. What else are you working on right now that people can check out?
Yeah, a bunch of those division previews. Then we also, Chuck and I, Charles McDonald and I, are writing a 25 trends of the past 25 years, things that influence the game this year and beyond. It's players, it's technology stuff. It's something fun that we're working on. So not sure if I spoiled anything, but that's what we're working on right now. It should be pretty fun, and I'm excited for that to come out pretty soon.
I'm excited to check that out when it does come out. I'm also excited to tell you about Yahoo Fantasy Plus, because yes, of course, listening to this podcast and us telling you about all these players you should not be excited about in fantasy football, you're still excited to draft your fantasy teams. And we know that we can give you an edge here on this podcast, give you that information. We also know for sure that Yahoo Fantasy Plus gives you an edge. By signing up for Yahoo Fantasy Plus today, you get personalized draft kits, which includes exclusive expert cheat sheets, AI-powered player insights. You also get a personalized draft scout that helps you in real time during your drafts, not to mention advanced player projections, including min-max projections for each player, as well as projections that incorporate coaching trends and weather forecasts. I mean, that is some advanced stuff right there. So sign up for Yahoo Fantasy Plus today at yahoofantasy.com/plus to dominate your leagues today. You can also find the link in the YouTube description of this pod if you're watching along with us right now. That is going to do it for today's show. On Wednesday, Ray Garvin joins me to identify 12 rookies you need to target in your drafts. Rookies make your league. They can make or break your league, basically. So you need to check this show out. That is going to be live at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Until then, we are out.